On the 16th of June, 2017, Nintendo released ARMS, a unique, mind-boggling, 3D fighting game with the same amount of stages as there are fighters. Exactly 3 years, and 24 days later, on the 8th of July, 2020, the creative team of Loser and Frosty released a revealing look into the secrets of the game formerly titled, the ARMS Iceberg. This video seeks to describe what each item on this graphic means in order from the surface to the deepest depths. Feel free to have a copy of the iceberg on hand and follow along. Enjoy the plunge.
Above the surface. Thumbs up grip.
This control scheme is almost as iconic as it is self-explanatory. It could be surprising to know it isn't the only way to play because it's definitely not stated on the back of the box, or inside the box, or every time you start up the game.
Plus ARMS.
Throughout the process of collecting ARMS from ARMGetter, you'll start to double up on certain ARMS. Resultantly, this will provide you with the plus ARM version of these ARMS, thus giving you a slightly enhanced version of the original. You should be keen on collecting all plus ARMS so you can match the damage output of your adversaries.
ARMS is dead.
This is a commonly stated phrase that cannot be pinpointed to just one individual, as it has been said for almost as long as ARMS has been out. While its synonymousness to the game is more or less indisputable, its accuracy could easily be debated in both directions.
Yabuki combo.
One of the most notable combos in the game, the Yabuki combo originated from a special match between director Mr. Yabuki and the ARMS Open Invitational champion Zerk. Being the first introduction to the game's possible depth, Yabuki comboed Zerk bouncing off of a trampoline into his rush, winning the round. This can also be done in a few select other stages through the game. The easiest and undoubtedly most iconic place to do so is on Spring Stadium.
Alternate colors.
As is the case for all proper multiplayer fighting games, ARMS has distinct alternate colors for each of its 15 playable characters. While the existence of them is great, their access is somewhat quirkily hidden behind knowing the secret method of their activation, clicking in the left stick and aiming in a cardinal direction.
Delayed graphic novel.
Quite a common point of discussion involving ARMS, there was a graphic novel series planned for the IP that was originally announced at 2017 New York City Comic Con. Although it was supposed to be released in fall of 2018, it never did, and despite connections to writer Ian Flynn and Dark Horse Comics, nothing ever surfaced beyond a one-issue preview during 2018 Free Comic Book Day, the cover of which is featured on the iceberg image. Could this be ARMS lost media in the making? Maybe, but that's beyond the scope of this video.
Dr. Coil X Max Brass.
This ship is one of the few, actually the only, direct ships supported in-game. After clearing Grand Prix with the rad scientist herself, an image is shown showcasing a snapshot from the past of their time together. Could this relationship have been reignited after the events of the game? Maybe, but that's beyond the scope of this video.
Hookshots.
At GDC 2018, Mr. Yabuki took the stage to discuss the development of ARMS. This extensive look into the game featured brand new details about the game's creation, including the fact that Link from the Legend of Zelda series was once considered for the game's playable character, with his weapons of choice being hookshots.
Sparring ring cameras.
Did you ever stop your battles and take in the sights while playing on Sparring Ring? If you did, you'd catch sight of several cameras throughout the border of the stage, completely removing any in-person viewing for the match at hand. Despite possible ARMS Labs related speculation, it isn't directly confirmed why this is the only stage without an in-person audience and instead is being recorded. Despite Sparring Ring's unique simplicity, there may be more to it under the surface.
Below the surface. Twintel's hair.
Among the cast of ARMS fighters, there is only one that has biological stretchy arms that are not actually arms, that fighter being Twintel. Despite the evident giant hair-based arms atop her head, there is both real-world and in-universe speculation that something may be awry with her situation. Be it questions of if her hair is real or not, or something of similar nature, attempts to discover the true nature of Twintel's hair are still shrouded in mystery.
Min bias.
Which ARMS fighter is in Smash Brothers? Which ARMS fighter won the party crash bash? Which ARMS fighter is Mr. Yabuki's main? Which ARMS fighter was one of the most publicized characters in the game? The answer remains consistent, Min Min. Clearly, considering the evidence, there is some form of a bias towards Min Min in general which can easily be attributed to any of the reasons previously mentioned but is likely a combination of several of them. Nonetheless, despite the claims that ARMS does not have a main character, Min Min is surely treated like it at times.
Out of bounds glitch.
If a stage has a corner, there's a good chance that you can escape its boundaries. This glitch of sorts is likely the most popularized and easily replicable glitch in the game, as there are even tutorials on how to do it. Breaking the boundaries of several stages can reveal interesting tidbits of information that are otherwise obfuscated. Despite not having any corners, there is also a more complicated out of bounds on Snake Park, but considering the wooding on the iceberg itself, that is beyond the scope of this video.
Gold Headlock.
Golden Headlock was a boss that only appeared online during party crashes and can thus no longer be fought. Breaking the barriers of the game's level system, this headlock was level 8 and even granted you a badge if you managed to defeat it. Unfortunately, Gold Headlock is yet another victim of time-sensitive ARMS content that is lost to time.
Chakram nerfs.
If you were one to follow the updates of ARMS closely, you would notice that the Chakram was adjusted in more updates than any other ARM. On top of that, the Chakram was nerfed 6 updates in a row and somehow, miraculously, is still among the best ARMS in the game competitively.
Gong on Ramen Bowl.
The title explains it all this time around. There is a prominent gong on Ramen Bowl. That being said, it's not featured in Min Min's final smash for no reason. You can actually ring the gong in ARMS itself. Any stray punch can allow it to sound off in grand fashion. No other benefits come with triggering it, but one has to admire the effort of being able to interact with the background element of a stage.
Max Brass photo in Scrapyard.
Among the tiny details scattered throughout the various stages of ARMS, there is a photo from Mechanica's past. This photo is difficult to see in game, but was shown off explicitly on the official ARMS Twitter account through a free cam of sorts. The photo itself depicts Mechanica and her father's meetup with the one and only Kamish. Whether or not this was a fun meetup, or if her family had a direct relation to Max Brass is widely out of the scope of this video.
Minigames are at Buster Beach.
Decorating Buster Beach are giant banners depicting the several mini-games of ARMS. This would have just been a simple nod to the sporting events if it weren't for the evident fact that all of the mini-games take place in a somewhat tropical environment strikingly similar to Buster Beach. Backed up by the shape of the map during Buster Beach's Grand Prix introduction, all of this points towards Buster Beach being a mini-game hotspot in the world of ARMS.
4-round Dr. Coil.
Dr. Coil can gain an extra arm when she charges, right? Well, what if I told you that there's an instance of her gaining 2 arms? Thankfully you can't play as this 4-armed Dr. Coil, but you can interact with it. Just play against Dr. Coil in Grand Prix and she'll have this ability to make her fight just the more difficult.
Multiple bites.
Yet another piece of the background element puzzle. Buster Beach houses an interesting detail, scattered throughout the boundaries of the stage. There are apparently multiple Byte robots surveying the area. This points towards Byte being one of many ARM-related police robots, but if his co-workers share his personality quirks or not is yet to be seen. Regardless, one thing is for sure, they are definitely maintaining the peace.
Stolen Springtron plans.
According to Biff, ARMS Labs in turn stole blueprints from Mechanica's workshop which may have included plans for Springtron. Dr. Coil has no direct connection to Springman in any sort of capacity at all, but it would make sense for an ARMS fan like Mechanica to build a replica of a famous ARMS fighter. This, however, is fairly speculative and therefore out of the scope of this video.
Null badges.
Despite the hundreds of fixed and randomized badge designs obtainable, they are outnumbered by the total number of acquirable badges. If you have already acquired all of the random design badges, any additional ones will feature a generic golden coin design that cannot be equipped as your set badge.
Frog on Ninjara.
Have you ever noticed this little froggy pin thing on Ninjara? Well, if you haven't, now you will never be able to unsee it. It could be assumed that this pin is in association with his brand gel, but on closer investigation it is more closely tied to Ninja College, as a certain badge features essentially the same frog wearing graduation attire.
Dr. C.
Far prior to Dr. Coyle's introduction as a playable character, a mysterious researcher by the name of Dr. C was teased in a multitude of tweets by the official ARMS account. This name also appears in a number of the lab confidentials featured in the in-game gallery. While it was not immediately evident that this figure would be playable, many correctly pondered the thought of Dr. C one day appearing as a DLC fighter.
Events tab.
All who qualify for an ARMS Senior discount fondly remember the short existence of the Events tab. This menu option allowed players to opt in or out of online events. While it isn't fully known if this was to gauge interest for future events like the US and Canada Open, or even party crashes, it is known that it only lasted for around 2 months before being patched out of the game.
Plant fighter.
Each fighter contains an internal name that is only seen by those who look deep into the files of the game. A number of fighters who never ended up coming to fruition exist inside these files, including one named Plant. This character was one of the most heavily speculated among the then unused internal names, likely due to the potential that plants could provide in terms of arms. Many were quick to assume that Misango was the plant fighter due to his teasers being set in a jungle. However, this was not the case.
Twintail.
Similar to the previous entry, a fighter existed internally named Twintail. This name has often been referred to as Twintail by ARMS community members, hence the spelling on the iceberg. Interestingly, this is not Twintail's internal name, but could possibly be an earlier version of her.
Nintendo knows ranked percentages.
As part of Mr. Yabuki's time at GDC discussing ARMS, he divulged a special chart depicting the ranked win rates for all characters at the time. With that said, this clearly shows that Nintendo themselves have inside knowledge into their perception of the game's competitive scene. This could have helped with balancing the game, or revealed character popularity. They could even be gathering this information to this day, but what they are truly doing with this information is beyond the scope of this video.
The case order.
Within the game, the order of base game fighters is as follows: Springman, Ribbon Girl, Ninjara, Master Mummy, Minman, Mechanica, Twintail, Bite and Bark, Kid Cobra, and Helix. This iconic ordering is completely different on the back of the physical game's case, with that order being Twintail, Bite and Bark, Minman, Ninjara, Ribbon Girl, Springman, Master Mummy, Mechanica, Kid Cobra, and then Helix. This strange order seemingly has no rhyme or reason to it, which makes theorizing about this arrangement all the more intriguing.
Bottom of the iceberg. Extend your arms.
Take a look at the back of the English box art and you'll see this slogan front and center. This statement also extends further a little lower on the case with the line, and compete in an all-new fighting sport. Although some may remember this line permeating ARMS advertising throughout 2017, it was only really prominently featured right here on the box art.
Fun names.
While some may be names they've had since birth, each character in ARMS has a name that could be construed as a pun or some kind of play on words. Most are fairly obvious, like Bite and Bark, but ones like Minmin and Misango are a bit less so. Minmin is a play on the Nintendo Noodle House, which is a further play on Nintendo, while Misango's name is a play on the Misanga type of bracelet. Even non-fighter characters like Biff and Headlock retain this pun naming system. Extending further beyond characters, some ARMS even have pun-like titles such as the Ice Dragon.
Edible blurbs.
The official description for the blorbs describe the fact that they taste quite good. While there are historical examples of things that taste good but are not edible, this might not be the case this time around. Instead, blorbs could just be some form of edible object that can be used as arms in battle nonetheless. They are certainly the tastiest of arms.
Snakeboard bias.
While Snake Park is typically considered a realm of competitive equality, there are disputes regarding the use of snakeboards. The winner of match tends to be the user of the board, yes? Well, not always, and that's not what this is referring to. Kid Cobra has extensive experience on these spinning tops which allow him to perform maneuvers no other character can manage, Hence they are biased in favor of the speed demon.
Purple fire.
The description of the roaster explicitly states that the fire it produces is blue, but in game it's evidently purple. It is unknown if this was some kind of translation mistake or if the fire they produce is just an indigo that is very close to violet. In addition to the roaster, purple flames are also located around the temple grounds stage. Whether or not these occurrences of fire have any connection to each other is out of the scope of this video, but it is not out of the realm of possibility.
Headlock.
Headlock has a very simple name, but that doesn't necessarily matter to some. Many people, unintentionally or not, misspell the secret weapon's name as its pun namesake, adding the rather redundant A and C back into the mix. As its name derives from headlocks, the lockjaw falls to a similar fate, with many adding back the C once more.
Helix juice.
Among the famous ARMS universe foods is helix juice, a liquid that is contained in a bottle designed to look like the man of mystery himself. Through official art, it is clear that helix juice boasts several flavors inspired by his in-game malts and comes in both a single serving and a double helix size that can be shared between friends, or more than friends, but who you share your helix juice with is none of our business.
Biff is a god.
Biff iconography is spread around the ARMS universe. Of course, he could be some kind of mascot, but there is evidence to point towards him being something more. Not only has he been around since before Max Brass, but he also has an explicitly odd relationship with the Misanga, of which they are very excited to meet him and Misango's Grand Prix ending, and they erect statues that are strikingly similar to Biff as well. Likening this to how other deities are treated, Biff could be seen as a god, or he could even, possibly, be a god himself.
SBSB04.
One of ARMS' most iconic visual aspects is its use of that bright neon yellow. From the game's logo to the pair of Joy-Cons, its appearance is instantly synonymous with ARMS. This hex code is of said color, or at least something approximate that you would acquire from color picking it, so feel free to use it on all of your graphics and logos to ensure people know for a fact that they are indeed relating to ARMS.
June 14th, 2017.
This is the date of the very first ARMS tournament, the ARMS Open Invitational at E3 2017. This event bore witness to what the game could showcase in a competitive fashion, including the legendary Yabuki combo. Interestingly, the dates surrounding this day both featured in-depth gameplay looks for ARMS, with the day after featuring the reveal of Max Brass being a playable character.
Multiple spring men.
Straight from the mouth of Mr. Yabuki, the Springman we can play as is not the first Springman. He's not even the second. The playable Springman in ARMS is the third Springman. But what happened to the other Springmen? I suppose that's beyond the scope of this video.
Big. EMP. Bang.
What is Springtron's ability called? While it is most certainly an electromagnetic pulse, also known as an EMP, in-game it is actually referred to by the name Big Bang. Interestingly, this name is very rarely used by players to describe his signature shockwave, since EMP is a much simpler way to describe it, but its official name exists nonetheless.
Biff's badges.
Throughout ARMS' social media stint, Biff has been cheeky with cheesing things through wearing badges. Among these are several fighters as well as the gallery. Despite being rather simple, Biff wearing badges could likely be considered trendy in universe, especially after the badge update popularized them.
Gold Twintel.
Once again, taking a look at what was shown at GDC, a number of early designs were shown off. Among these was a look at an early Twintel that had an emphasis on gold. The lines across her pants as well as her entire shirt were both golden, in addition to having gold shoes and jewelry. While the bracelets and earrings remained in her final design, she was eventually given a more varied outfit, expanding her main palette to gold, white, red, and black. Her heavy emphasis on gold is not fully gone in game though, as her brand, Overrun, still features a prevalence of gold in addition to her ability displaying golden roses.
Movable cars.
Cleanly lined up through one half of Cinema Ducks are 4 of Twintel's cars. These cars can be used as manual trampolines and can be used to block arms as well. In addition to all of this, striking the cars with a punch, grab or rush can move them from their original position, slightly turning the tide of battle. Despite the minuscule amount the cars shift from being hit, maybe this is the key to winning on this controversial stage. But considering competitive advice is certainly beyond the scope of this video, maybe that's best left for the viewer to decide.
Headlocks render.
Every playable character in ARMS has their very own unique render that is shown before fighting them in Grand Prix. On top of this, the notorious secret weapon also has a render. Thankfully it appears when he appears in Grand Prix, so it's not hidden. But regardless, he has the unique distinction of not being fully playable but still having a render of his own. In terms of the render's public availability, however, Headlock's render is possibly lost, but this is an iceberg on ARMS, not lost media, so the scope of this video dictates that this discussion ceases its forward progression.
Scrapyard scribbles.
As pointed out by the official ARMS Twitter, as well as key Night ARMS fans, Mechanica personalized Scrapyard a good deal. Littered throughout the stage are crude drawings of Mechanica and Ribbon Girl that are, of course, drawn by the Scrapyard scrapper herself. Although it can be difficult to spot them all during a heated match, if you take your time to browse your surroundings, you're guaranteed to catch at least one in passing.
Breakable frogs.
Whiffing a punch on Ninja College is a near guarantee considering the rather slanted nature of the stage. Thankfully, you can sometimes be rewarded for such a whiff by hitting one of the 12 stone frogs throughout the stage. You'll know if you've done a frog in through seeing it not get destroyed as expected, but instead vanishing with a puff of smoke similarly to Ninja Rap, signified by a slimy type of sound reminiscent of a frog escaping your grasp.
Hypnosis implications.
Despite the usefulness of being able to control one's arms, it is not difficult to see that requiring ARMS fighters to wear masks is suspicious. This detail, coupled with the fact that biological ARMS fighters have distinctly swirly irises, could be pointing to the fact that some ARMS fighters could be under the spell of some kind of ARMS Labs hypnosis, the topic of which fighter though, is outside of this video's scope.
Rig boomerang.
Ahead of the version 2.1.0 update, the official ARMS Twitter account posted a piece of promotional artwork of Mechanica working on a boomerang while Buff watches. A fighter tampering with League equipment seems awfully close to collusion, does it not? In this update, both Mechanica and the boomerang were buffed, the latter significantly. Was this truly rigging the system, or are the laws of the ARMS universe different from our own? The answer is likely out of the scope of this video.
Dr. Coil fans.
On the highest difficulty levels of Grand Prix, Dr. Coil interrupts the finale and replaces Max Brass as the final fighter you face. While nothing may seem off at first, it takes a close eye to realize that among the crowd are fans of the rad scientist herself. In universe, her interjection is not necessarily supposed to happen, so it raises questions on why and how some civilians dressed as devoted fans so quickly arrived to the scene. Are each of them secretly undercover ARMS Labs employees in on the whole operation? Maybe, but that's beyond the scope of this video.
Billy.
The ARMS universe has plenty of brands for plenty of things, and Billy is one of them, of course. Both Spring Man and Ribbon Girl's outfits feature the Billy logo.
Ramen bowl storm drain.
Sometimes it's fun to think about the practicality of things, even if they are in the realm of fiction. This entry attempts to rationalize the logistics of how Ramen Bowl must operate in the world of ARMS. When an inevitable rainstorm looms above the Nintendo noodle shop, their famous giant bowl will surely be filled, and with that considered, the fighters likely couldn't perform to their finest whilst swimming. Thus, despite the disheartening nature of an empty bowl of ramen, it is very likely that there is a drain of sorts located at the bottom of the bowl to ensure a dry playing field.
DNA lab murder conspiracy.
Despite frequent pleas not to discuss this topic, it's time to attain the chilling truth. Out of respect for the victims, the accounts relayed are anonymous. According to our source, when a pillar is destroyed on DNA lab, something bad happens. Something really bad. Something so bad that only the iceberg itself has the confidence to say it out loud. This could be grounded in Dr. C's legendary escapades of reanimating corpses, but overall this is quite the opposite. Nonetheless, all of this is Of course, speculation from a primary source, but one can't help but think that the rat scientists' operations would run a lot smoother if they had an ample supply of, well, you know, dead bodies.
Open ocean. Japan bias.
In the realm of ARMS, official support from Nintendo has been spread across the world, but their home country of Japan has gotten by far the most food at the metaphorical table. A string of offline Grand Prix tournaments among others were often the envy of ARMS fans overseas. This bias runs further than just competitive events though, as the game's official Twitter account is only in Japanese. In addition, the official ARMS website existed in many different languages, but today only the site for Japan stands in its original glory. The US site has since been taken down in favor of a simple product page. Does the bias end there? No, a number of books and a plethora of official merch also exists that was only created for Japan as well.
Min Min gets dragon arm after grabs.
Did you know, if Min Min can complete a grab then she'll perma-charge her left arm, aptly named her dragon arm. For whatever reason a specific group of people didn't really know this. Well, now you do.
Sky Arena glare.
Fights atop Sky Arena are bathed in the light of the sunset. This beautiful display is apparently not beautiful to all, as the sun blinds some adversaries who happen to look near it. The purported affliction is so blinding in fact, that some refuse to fight on the stage at all. Interestingly, this glare does not affect all in the same manner.
DNA Lab headlock.
Tucked deep in the back of DNA Lab lies an experiment in the making. Provided through the official ARMS Twitter, and later proven by out-of-bounds glitches, a prototype headlock is situated in the far back of DNA Lab, forever watching the matches that take place there. This version of headlock is clearly being worked on, with a tube in his mouth and him being mounted vertically. One can't help but think he might be looking at DNA Lab so he can gain fighter data, but that's beyond the scope of this video.
ARMS rush.
In ARMS, after their rush gauge fills, each character can make use of a rush that is tailored to the arms they are currently using. This is not the case in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate though. Min Min has no rush gauge in Smash, nor can she actually perform a rush, unlike the Springman Assist trophy. Instead, they decided to relegate the rush to her final smash in the form of ARMS Rush. This oddly named finisher shares little with the rushes of ARMS, electing to have multiple punches coming from other fighters as opposed to a flurry of her own. This is one of two major seemingly creatively lacking features of Min Min in Ultimate, with the second being the very original and iconic move, ARMS Jump.
Grand Prix logo.
The Grand Prix logo is a variation on the ARMS League logo and can be found on badges, throughout stages, and of course on the Grand Prix Championship belt. Arches approximating the same logo can also be seen at Buster Beach, funnily enough. Why this logo, or just the standard ARMS League logo, wasn't used in Smash Bros. For Min Min's series symbol is surely a strange choice, but it is ever so slightly out of the scope of this video.
This has the ARMS ability.
Spiral irises? Check. Stretchy, springy arms? Check. A mask? Check. Dare I say more?
Chest lock.
An early look at headlock can be seen in Secret Weapon Notes 1 in the gallery known as Project Wearable Weapon. This machine wasn't to be placed on your head, but rather on your torso. A later note proposed the device's use of brain power in order to fully function, but this was dismissed. Regardless of that though, the design left the chest and moved to the head, so it is possible that the heart contains too much love for such a powerful weapon anyways.
Dr. Coil's taste.
In ARMS Lab's Confidential number 14, it is revealed that the mysterious Dr. C lacks the ability to taste. This could be the reason that ARMS Lab's cookie business isn't as popular as Lola Pops, but that is surely a reach. Claiming that it is due to her experiments is a bit of a stretch, but less so considering how many experiments she has done to herself. There's also a bit of flexibility for the chance that she was born with this problem. Regardless of how this small flaw happened to land upon Dr. Coil is out of the scope of this video and doesn't make her any less broken in competitive use.
Stone regeneration.
Temple Grounds is one of many stages with pillars. With that said, however, these are chiseled stone statues that are evidently one of a kind. They are surely destroyed at the end of a match taking place there, but How do they come back then? Instead of depleting the Masangan stone quarry, there might be a more logical answer. The stones regenerate every so often to ensure that temple grounds always has its iconic pillars. This same principle could also be at play for mausoleums floor as, thankfully, the trampoline is not always exposed.
100 ranked wins.
Some days, it feels impossible to win even one ranked match. Despite your poor execution and weak excuses, it is most definitely possible to get a long streak of wins. Certain streaks even provide you with a badge for your efforts, including one for an elusive 100 game win streak. It is foretold that some players have even used certain times lack of players to consistently match up with someone purposely idling to grind for said badge of legend despite the fact that it's not even a visually unique badge.
US and Canada.
In March of 2018, Nintendo tracked ranked numbers to qualify players into the ARMS US and Canada Online Open. This important and iconic event was a major spectacle in the game's early history, but why was it only limited to the United States of America and Canada? Geographically, this eliminates Mexico and any other portion of North America besides the two largest countries there, by a landmass. Was this for ease, legal reasons, or some other third thing? Nintendo knows for sure, but speculating directly would be out of the scope of this video.
ARMS gene.
Everyone knows that many fighters in ARMS have springy appendages, but as to why they exist has a genuine in-universe explanation. An ARMS gene is said to bring this ability upon someone which can even lie dormant for many years, with that being the case for Springman. Despite this somewhat understandable reasoning, it would not fully explain the ability to manufacture things with the ARMS ability such as Springtron, Headlock, and Bite, unless the ARMS universe has technology advanced enough to replicate an otherwise biological trait.
Unclear mask purpose.
One of the many poor decisions during Min Min's introduction to Smash Bros. Is the choice to obfuscate the actual purpose of masks in the ARMS universe. Pre-Smash Bros., it was said that masks simply allow individuals with the ARMS gene to control their previously out-of-control arms, but Min Min's reveal depicts her without any ability, and instead the mask possibly gives her the ARMS ability in the first place. Regardless of this large lapse in judgment, the true purpose of masks in the ARMS universe is out of the scope of this video, and this section only aims to describe this discrepancy.
Masango is chemically toxic.
Masango is the only character in the game to have his defaults be 100% one type of attribute, that being poison. In fact, he's the only fighter that has default poison arms at all. With that in mind, Masango must spend a lot of time around these arms. Spending so much time around a ton of poison seems like a bad idea, but what if Masango had something in common with them? What if Masango used poison arms because he himself was biologically poisonous? Not only could his playstyle be described as toxic, but it could also then be described as toxic.
The Cell.
Have you ever wondered who those Helix-like creatures are in 1-on-100 or the warm-up room? These men of mystery are known collectively as the Cell and are apparently creations of ARMS Labs, prototype helixes in fact. Internally, they are known as RNA despite the fact that their arms still feature a double helix, which is not a feature of actual RNA molecules. This combined with their incredible fragility creates more questions than answers. Thankfully, ARMS Labs seemingly created a plethora of these beings that are ripe for studying.
Lost Masango render.
Masango and his little guardian friend are quite the dynamic duo, but are they always together? The answer was no, but it seems to have been lost to time. As all fighters do, Masango has a render, but his little friend is put on top of him in most cases. Despite this, there exists a version of his render without the guardian on top of him that doesn't seem to be findable anymore. With his singular render being considered lost, it seems as though we won't be able to admire Masango without playing the game itself.
Clipping metal render.
Nothing is perfect, and Bite and Bark's render is no different. On extremely close inspection of Bite, one could find a piece of metal that is clearly clipping into another piece of Bite, thus breaking the raw immersion that would otherwise exist by gazing upon a robotic cop and his mechanical canine.
Mob mentality.
The fans of the ARMS world seemingly operate in strict character preferences. You can only be a fan of one fighter at a time. That isn't even to mention the fact that everyone in the entire world loves arms fights, and society removed from this realm is never quite displayed either. Fans come in a small handful of visual looks as well, potentially representing their lack of true individuality among the crowd. In addition to the in-game potential mob mentality, real-world examples exist too. Some players against the game band together to dogpile the unique arena fighter, while some other players for the game may also follow their crowd to shield the early Switch release from any detractor.
Ninja, I cheated.
Who is your favorite ARMS character? It is probably not Ninjara, so how did he win so many party crash events? The student of stealth lost just one event and dominated his half of the party crash bash. This is a tad suspicious, and even more so when you consider that two of his default arms are two of the most competitively viable arms in the game, being the Chakram and Tri-Blast, plus a glove arm to top his kit off. This senior college student may have felt inconfident on his ability to succeed, leading to his dive into the realms of broken game mechanics known in the world of academia as cheating, or more fancily put, academic dishonesty.
Bark Ascension.
Having a loyal friend tag along in your matches is great, especially when you don't have many abilities of your own. Bite's sidekick, despite being an explicit mechanical canine, shows genuine care for his master and even shows interest in other dogs in their Grand Prix ending. All of this, with the added information that Bark can attack on his own, might point towards Bark having sentience beyond his programming.
Purposely delayed graphic novel.
The questionable cancellation of the ARMS graphic novel is a legendary low point for the ARMS community, but what if it were an omen of a legendary high point? It is within the realm of possibility that the graphic novel wasn't actually cancelled, and instead was delayed intentionally to prepare us ARMS fans for a future ARMS related event of some kind. What that event could be, however, is beyond the scope of this particular video.
Temple Prophecy.
At Temple Grounds, there are art and carvings that seemingly depict the fighters we all know and possibly love that are playable in ARMS. These images predate the fighters themselves, bar maybe Master Mummy, so it seems as though the Misanga can possibly see the future. Even more interesting is the fact these images, on this stage, only seem to coincidentally depict fighters in this game. If a sequel were to come, would Misango hail from a different court with more iconography for that game's fighters? That is completely out of the scope of this video.
Helix has just 5 arms.
Close your eyes and imagine Helix punching. You've imagined Helix with mega big blobs, right? This isn't big time ARMS. Helix is famously known to have girth 5 arms, or so the ARMS wiki says. Did it ever even say that?
Misplaced tag render.
Master Mummy is apparently the master of something, but clearly not of consistency. A small tack featuring the ACOM logo can be seen on one of the Grim Creeper's straps across his chest in his official render, but this placement is completely reversed in game. This exact tag is not on his chest, but rather on his back in game. It is indeed a very silly yet also intriguing error.
Kid Cobra Collective.
This is referring to the early ARMS meme, speaking of the proverbial Kid Cobra hive mind. Yes? That assumption would be horribly wrong. The speed demon hides a secret behind his mask. What lies directly under it is fully up to speculation, and, unlike in previous instances, it is directly in scope of this video. Potentially, Kid Cobra is not one man, but instead a collective of snakes in the living image of a live streaming team. This could be the hidden meaning behind the unique design his pants sport, a swarm of snakes, all intertwined. Kid Cobra may be a hunk with snake-like dreadlocks, a bald shut-in with venomous fangs, or a heap of human-shaped snake mass. What he truly looks like under the mask and gear, in actuality, is out of the scope of this video, however.
Deflect is self-harm.
Several fighters in ARMS have an ability to fend off incoming attacks through an air burst, titled Deflect. If Springman, Max Brass, and Springtron could use this ability 100% of the time, they'd be unbeatable. But what if this ability has a biological reason for being so limited in its usage? It could very well be possible that, despite not losing any HP from doing so, Deflect actually causes the user some amount of pain whilst in use. If this were the case, then it wouldn't be hard to see why Springman can have a temper at times. He's pushing through the pain to get to that champion belt, and of course, the commish himself got himself to the top in a similar fashion. But at what cost? Stay tuned to find out.
Deep Sea Joy-Con Bundle.
ARMS is one of the select few Switch games to be released alongside uniquely colored Joy-Con controllers, but they were never actually paired together in one product. Of course, requiring an $80 addition onto a brand new IP wouldn't help sales much, but the option couldn't hurt for those interested. While the potential was extremely evident, even games such as Splatoon 2 never received a Joy-Con and game bundle alone, so it was perhaps just not meant to be.
Name redacted.
It might be shocking for a stage to have a name such as
Name redacted.
but sometimes a stage just needs a name that fits it ever so properly. Though since
Name redacted.
can't be directly spoken, written or mentioned in any capacity, it's shocking to be left with a stage dubbed Name Redacted instead. In hindsight, this section might not make any sense since the non-redacted title of this stage is seemingly unknown. Nonetheless, despite the genuine interest in knowing what Name Redacted is covering up, it is a mystery left to time for now, at least in terms of public knowledge.
Lighting variations.
Remember that glare on Sky Arena? Does it hurt your eyes just thinking of it? Some people say yes, some say no. In addition to this variation, other discrepancies exist throughout the game too. Shadows differing on Via Dolce and temple grounds, variable reflections on metallic surfaces, and other very small, super slight, maybe even incomprehensibly different lighting variations that will truly make you think of how things are supposed to actually look.
Biff is omnipresent.
How can Beth be the only ARMS League commentator that we know about? Not only that, but he makes public appearances all the time. All things considered, it'd be quite useful for him to be omnipresent, and his ability to appear at just the right time seems to point in the direction of this possibility. Due to this, discussion on the topic will be abruptly halted to prevent Beth from appearing before us. Always keep in mind how many times you say Beth in front of mirror.
Capoeira.
Although we could explain this section in detail, it was already described extensively by the acclaimed YouTuber, Scruffy, and thus we'll recommend his video on the matter instead of going any further. On top of this,
Berimbau.
this unique word is also featured in that amazing dive into the musical style of ARMS. Feel free to go watch that video once this one has reached its end.
Swirl.
Every fighter's logo shares one thing, and it's a tiny swirl. This little adornment is possibly the ARMS universe's equivalent to the trademark or copyright symbol seen frequently near logos in our world. This swirl isn't only for the characters' logos though. Brands, the ARMS League's logo, and even Headlock's emblem has it tagging along.
Forethought.
If you want the color of your fighter to change color, it's easy. Click the stick and push in a direction. But how about up? It's just their original color. You're likely trying to tell me, but look at it this way. If you click up, then you will be guaranteed the default alt instead of being forced off of it. With this considered, clicking up, in theory, reveals a forethought for you to choose for battle.
Stadium behind Armageddon.
Armageddon is truly a unique minigame experience that almost looks like a unique venue. All other minigames are at Buster Beach, and maybe Armageddon is too, but it looks like there could be something more behind the scoreboard. Arena walls and a sandy floor are features of olden times coliseums, so perhaps his stadium is behind this game. Biff has a prominent role here though, being a huge cutout and all, so it is completely within the realm of possibility that this could have been Biff's stage.
ARMS Band.
Unlike a game like Splatoon, the ARMS universe doesn't have many direct musical groups beyond some involving playable fighters. Although there is one exception, the ARMS Band. The one and only ARMS Band is responsible for the iconic credits theme played at the end of Grand Prix. Although their sound is distinct, none of the members of the band are known, though their true identities extend past the scope of this video, so we're left to speculate in silence.
Lockjaw's Ascension.
If you are one of the 3 people to ever try to use Lockjaws in battle, you probably noticed that they look around when not in use. When used as intended, they surely listen to your commands, but besides that, they seemingly have aspirations for something more. Knowing that the ARMS universe is home to several sentient superbots, it is not outside the realm of possibility to assume that Lockjaws themselves could be sentient. though it is outside the realm of this video to further speculate beyond that.
Headlock's body.
Is the ultimate weapon really just a head? There has to be more, right? It could be that Headlock is simply the head to a more advanced type of robot, but then it'd be unclear as to why his body was never publicly shown off. With that in mind, the mysterious Dr. C likely has a few hidden tricks up her non-existent sleeve, so there's always a possibility that Headlock's attack on Grand Prix was simply a test for the head with plans for a body down the line. Considering the existence of Chestlock, there is also a fun possibility of a build-your-own style robot made up of several locks, but maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Cold stare.
Each gallery piece has its own name, and this Kid Cobra art is no different. Its name, Cold Stare, seems appropriate, but it also seemingly has another connection. A common speed demon in the competitive ARMS scene throughout its early days, Cold Stare's name features identical pronunciation to this official art. While it could just be coincidence, we'd be inclined to think this is something more, if it weren't potentially out of the scope of this video, of course.
Max Brass is a zombie.
Recall when it was mentioned that Deflect could be causing our old commish some pains? Well, what if it did more than that? With his white, lifeless eyes and uncanny ability to inflate his body, there is a chance that Max Brass' long stint as champion is due to his immortality at a cost. Remember, you can't kill what's already dead.
Sweet citrusy taste.
Now what could this mean? Why, it's a quote from the exceptional ARMS commentator Jordan Kent. The trusty caster stated this during the US and Canada Online Open in reference to the player Pineapple Freak, with the full quote being, "Pineapples known for their sweet citrusy taste and connecting with rush attacks." A quote so nice that it could only be rivaled by a statement from Biff himself.
Skybox exit.
Around every stage, a skybox exists, which is essentially the sky above and around that particular world. If an out-of-bounds glitch is performed and then an excessive amount of time is spent flying further and further away, one may reach this skybox and exit the confines of the map, as it lacks any collision. Unfortunately, nothing but the void exists on the other side, and viewing this void directly is near incomprehensible for humans. Whether this is a display of the true state of the ARMS world or if it is just a typical video game restriction is definitely beyond the scope of this video.
Cartoon Network short.
Although the thought of a Western animated ARMS cartoon is tantalizing, this spot is slightly less so. Instead, to promote several Nintendo games during the early days of the Switch, Cartoon Network had a few bumpers with characters interacting with Nintendo games. This one in particular features characters from We Bare Bears learning to play ARMS. Whether or not the bears still play is out of the scope of the video, but one could hope, I suppose.
Rank 21.
Is getting to rank 20 a good metric to measure for player ability? Not necessarily. But ignoring that for a second, what if you could go beyond the restricting of a meager 20 ranks? Besting everyone you possibly could, winning more than anyone, and finally removing the max bar you've gained to obtain a secret 21st rank. Unfortunately, this is an iceberg video, not a tutorial, so get to hunting for your own if you want this elusive, and possibly non-existent, rank.
Yabuki voices Helix.
Although the game itself doesn't display the voice actors of the fighters, many of them are still known through other means. Despite this, the Man of Mystery does not have a confirmed voice actor in any capacity. With the similarities between Smash Bros.'s Masahiro Sakurai voicing King Dedede, it is very possible that Mr. Yabuki himself voices Helix. While he's never claimed such an interesting fact, the idea, at least at the time of writing this, is quite realistic, and it'd surely be exciting to watch him perform Helix in person.
Soreness lawsuit. Don't research.
When playing ARMS with the thumbs up grip, you should be careful to know your limits. Punching in game doesn't require full force punches in real life, but that isn't exactly clear. A number of known incidents have occurred relating to injury and tendon soreness on the arms of ARMS players, both young and older. Non-disclosure agreements and restraining orders have been filed, plus money has been given out of court, in instances completely unrelated to any of these known incidents, but the arms are still sore. You can either learn to play in a way that is safer for your health or join in on the class action lawsuit and probably lose. The decision is up to you, But be advised that you should not research this any further either way.
Child endangerment.
In a number of official art pieces, different fighters are seen saving fans of their own. These publicity pieces most definitely increase the popularity of fighters in universe even more. They save children. Despite that angle, it is very odd how these fighters are conveniently in the exact location of a child in danger. Possibly, ARMS labs are purposefully endangering children in order to earn their combatants some points in the public's favor. A team of fighters against evil, known as the ARMS Rangers, even exists, so it's not out of the question at all. Although, the exact purpose and existence of those very Rangers are most definitely out of the scope of this video.
Significant cookies.
Lollipop has plenty of delicious offerings, with cookies being just one. In addition to those, the ARMS Cafe has some baked goods as well, which include officially licensed Biff cookies. A tin of those very cookies actually appears in Dr. Coyle's Grand Prix Victory image too. Back to Via Dolce though, ARMS Labs even has a cafe there which, what do you know, also sells cookies. Maybe they just happen to focus on cookies over the other sweets permeating the ARMS world, but all that we can assume is that cookies there sure are significant.
Every party crash is rigged.
There are a total of 31 party crashes. All of them of course had a winner, though was that through the spirit of competition? Or were party crashes simply employed by ARMS Labs to give certain fighters the spotlight? Guess we'll never know for sure, since investigative journalism is beyond the scope of this video.
Look up.
Being one of the more eerie sounding spots on the iceberg, one would consider this to be urging the audience to gaze above themselves, though this isn't quite the case. Instead, we take our attention to the very first trailer for ARMS. At the end, the music rises beautifully with several fighters attacking Springman, culminating in the ARMS logo. But, let's take another look at that. All of those fighters attacking Springman are adjusted in a way to be aiming and usually high, even higher than one would look if facing Dr. Coyle on Scrapyard. With this in mind, something had to be done to let the fighters aim to the sky. What this mystery developer till is beyond our scope, as we need to take a deep dive into game development to find our answer. Instead, let's be thankful that we can look up without the need of extraneous developer tools.
1,000 ranked wins.
100 wins in a row may be elusive on ranked, but what about 1,000? Is it even possible? Do you get a special badge commemorating this that is signed by Beth and gives you 3,000 ARMS coins? We do not know and lack the time to find out. Nonetheless, feel free to try for yourself and make ranked popular once more.
ARMS 2 never existed.
Many have speculated that some things have pointed towards a coming sequel, or even that this hypothetical ARMS 2 was planned to occur eventually, though this entry states otherwise. It's not a guarantee, no matter how much we'd like to think that, and many games that have done fairly well haven't gotten sequels. It is completely possible that the very concept of a second ARMS Trump was never even spoken of within Nintendo, but the potential does still remain. This entry could age well, or horribly, but knowing which way is out of the scope of this video for a fact.
Music character theory.
Let's take a moment to listen to the theme of ARMS. What letter is repeated throughout the iconic tune? If you answered M, you might want to get your ears checked. The letter O is repeated throughout the main theme of ARMS and is the main focus of this specific theory. While one would be compelled to count the frequency of this letter, that is not important at this point in time. Instead, the letter itself is the focus. The letter O is, in fact, the 15th letter of the alphabet, and there are 15 total playable fighters in ARMS. Ignoring all coincidences, it is completely within the realm of possibility that Nintendo themselves were hinting at the total number of ARMS fighters all along. Whether or not all of the fighters we got were the ones originally planned is completely outside of the realm of this video, however.
ARMS is dead.
ARMS detractors are quick to state a single line, almost every time, ARMS is dead. Of course, fans of the game will either ignore this or maybe try to reason a bit, but are they correct? No one plays it anymore, no party or ranked matches are being fought, there are no locals or competitive events to speak of either. Right now, things aren't the way it was a month after release. Fan art is non-existent too. Not even one portrait of Arena Sawn Biff to speak of. Any relevant hashtags are loaded with people flexing and posing. The game can't even be searched on common search engines, only using its title. Ironically, at the deepest end of the iceberg, surface level observations have been made. No attempts at digging any deeper than what they see in front of their eyes. Is ARMS dead? We'll leave that question to, and for, you to find out.
She lost.
What's this? There's text there? That is a weird spot for an entry, but it is there. Min Min won the party crash bash, but did she win? A highly speculative, definitely out of the scope of this video, theory is that this victory sealed the deal on her spot in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. While it is truly great to have a fighter from ARMS, does Min Min want the attention? She trends online often, but it's not praise or cheering. Rather, it's complaints and statements that her inclusion was not a pleasant one. Min Min's ultimate goal was to aid her family's noodle house, but is this negative publicity actually hurting it really, really badly? Ramen Bowl isn't even her home stage in Ultimate, maybe to avoid any further backlash. Saying that for certain though is, for one last and final time, truly, absolutely, and without a doubt, out of the scope of this video. Are you still there? While it could be stated that there are no more entries throughout this iceberg, there is yet one last phrase.
Every copy of ARMS is personalized.
The title of the iceberg itself is our final category, but it's not simply a copy of a similar phrase used for other games. It's in fact true. Everyone has their own specific amount of ARMS coins. They have their own party crash results, rank number, badge amounts, and stats per arm. It'd be highly unlikely that any two copies of ARMS could have every detail exactly the same, as ARMS does a great job tracking a huge amount of data pertaining to the player. After playing at least once, your copy of ARMS is yours, and yours alone. Thank you very much for watching this video through its entirety. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe, share the video with your best friends, or even a comment if you feel inclined to do so. We greatly appreciate the support. Either pinned comment for a number of important links pertaining to this video and etc., as well as any potential updates. Stay tuned for any possible ARMS related content in the future and enjoy the rest of your day knowing all the information you have just absorbed.